Good morning. It is wonderful to see you today. For all of our guests that are here today, maybe the first time you've been with us or maybe even the second time or you've been with us on some special occasion before. I'm Brian. I'm the lead pastor here at Calvary and want to say again, congratulations. Isn't this a great looking group of seniors up here today? Give them a big hand. I could not be more happy and more excited for all of you guys. It's just been a privilege to get to see you. Many of you grow up here and many of you join us a little bit later in the game, and great group. Wanted to tell all of you parents and family members how very welcome you are. We're so glad you've come. And to our entire church, we're having a luncheon to honor these seniors right after church across the street. So everybody's invited to that. Please come on out. These seniors all have a table with kind of a display of some of the features from their high school career. And we're encouraging you, find something on that table, drop some money in that for them, and they will appreciate that, I know. Don't take any money from there, just leave them some money from there, and I know they'll appreciate it. Just all this senior talk, I was thinking, this seems absolutely like yesterday that I was seated at my church in Big Spring, Texas as a senior in high school, preparing to walk that stage and kind of launch out into my life. It seems like yesterday. The reality is that wasn't yesterday. I realize, I didn't even know this, this will be my 25-year anniversary this year of when I actually graduated high school. 25 years, 1994. I know a guy who recently, a kid came up to him and asked a friend of mine, he said, "Were you born in the 1900s? How's that make y'all feel? How many of you are here today, you were born in the 1900s? Yeah, exactly, all right? So let me tell our seniors, let me tell you guys a few things about people in the 1900s, all right? This is what a phone looks like for people in the 1900s. Yeah. And if you were super lucky, you got the extra long cord, right? Where you could like walk around the house with that baby, call waiting, like you pushed the thing one time and it clicked over, all right? This was a cell phone in the 1900s. They call that now a Zach Morris, I believe. But if you had a cell phone, if you were one of those blessed people, that was your cell phone. This was a Google search in the 1900s. How many of you had a big old set of encyclopedias at your house? Yeah, exactly. Okay, and here's the thing. I remember the day, okay? I remember the day when we had TVs without remote controls. This was our remote control. Like, Bobby, turn it to 7. Bobby, turn it to 11, right? If you were the youngest in the house, you just like sat by the TV and you flipped the channel, right? Okay, so another one that I was really thinking about is in the 1900s, there was a big deal that would happen in our school when the teachers would bring all the classes together and they would roll out the TV. And there was a special moment when we got to watch this.
We are transferring to orbiter internal power at this time. Discovery is now running off its 3 onboard fuel cells. Coming up on a go for auto sequence start.
Okay, let's go for auto sequence start.
And we have a go for auto sequence start. Discovery's onboard computers have primary control of all the vehicle's critical functions. T-minus 17 seconds and counting. 15, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Go for main engine start. Main engine start. 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the space station, paving the way for future missions beyond.
Here's the Discovery roll program.
Houston now controlling the flight of Discovery. The space shuttle begins the journey back into orbit. Discovery completes its roll. The shuttle now heads down, wings level for the 8.5-minute run camera on the external tank's liquid oxygen feed line showing the bird's eye view of Discovery as it races towards space, a star-spangled start to Discovery's mission.
Yeah, all right. How many of you remember the teacher rolling in the TV and your classes coming together to watch that? How many of you remember it? Now I realize some of you can always be like, they didn't have rockets when I was a kid. They had rocks when I was a kid, right? Some of you are there. But for a lot of us, that was a really big deal to watch that blast off. And here's the thing, I was thinking about the fact that for you seniors, that is a pretty good analogy for where you're at today, right? All kinds of energy and like momentum and excitement, like you're in countdown mode, right? There's all this fire and all this enthusiasm, and you're getting ready to blast off. And here's the thing, when that rocket gets to a certain point, some of the blasters come away from it, and you're about to part from your parents and part from your house and part from your youth department and part in some ways from your town. And eventually, you're going to find yourself into an orbit that will last the rest of your life. You're going to find yourself in the orbit of a marriage for some of you, the orbit of a career, the orbit of what college to choose, the orbit of what your life is going to look like. But that's not today. Today, you're getting ready to blast off and head into those orbits. James Dobson wrote this: if you're between 16 and 26 years of age, you are moving through what we will call the critical decade. Some of the most dramatic and permanent changes in life usually occur during these 10 short years. A person is transformed from a kid who is living at home and eating at his parents' table to a full-fledged adult who should be earning a living and taking complete charge of his or her life. Most of the decisions that will shape the next 50 years are made in this era, including the choice of an occupation, perhaps the decision to marry, and the establishment of values and principles by which you will live your life. Here's the thing, everybody out here, your parents, your family members, your church brothers and sisters, we all remember that day when we were so excited to just get into this next chapter, to just get out on our own and be our own person and achieve our dreams. And this is a marvelous, marvelous, exciting time. But the thing I want to remind you guys of today is it is so important that when you're launching out, you get the right trajectory. Here's what I mean by that. They tell us that if that space shuttle was just a few inches off course at takeoff, it could be miles off course when it finally got into orbit. And so this is a beautiful, exciting period. It's also a risky period because the decisions you're about to be making are going to determine the rest of your life in so many ways. There's a principle that I absolutely love. This has been in a past series of ours, and it really was a life changer for me. And the principle is this: your path determines your destiny. Yeah, my voice cracked. Don't laugh at me. That's mean. Your path is a full Peter Brady. I'm sorry. Your path determines your destination. Okay? Your path determines your destination. The choices you make today, the way you invest your time, the way you invest your heart, the way you invest your gifts, the values, the choices you make today are determining where you wind up later in life. Your path determines your destination. Last week we started a new series called Seasons, because it's incredible how the seasons of nature, in most of the country, that's winter, spring, summer, and fall. In Texas, that's hot, super hot, unbearably hot, freezing cold. But how the seasons of life are kind of like, the seasons of nature are kind of like the seasons of our life. There are ups, there are downs, there are victories, there are defeats. It's all part of that. And last week we talked about the spring season of your life, and we equated that to the time when you're a parent having small children in your house and raising kids. This morning, I want to talk to you about the summer season of your life. And that's the season that you seniors are in today, and many of the people in this auditorium are in today. You are launching out into what will be the rest of your life. Here's the question we want to pose today. If your path determines your destination. If the choices you're going to be making over the next couple of years determine who you marry, what your career is, where you go to college, your relationship with God, what your life looks like, how can you make wise decisions? How can you choose good paths? We're going to get our advice from a very good place today. If you have your Bible, I want you to turn to Proverbs chapter number 3. If not, we'll get this text up on the screen. Solomon. The Bible referred to this guy as the wisest man who ever lived. And that's saying something when you see all the prophets and all the great men and women of God. We see this incredible story with Solomon. His dad was the greatest king in Israel's history, a guy by the name of David. King David had a son named Solomon. And as David is passing off the scene and Solomon is coming on the scene, Solomon actually has a moment where God appears to him and says, Solomon, ask for what you want and I'll give it to you. You're my coming king. You're going to replace David, this great father of yours. Ask me for what you want and I'll give it to you. And Solomon, actually this young guy, he prays this amazing prayer. He says, God, I'm just a kid. I'm afraid I'll make the wrong decisions. I'm just a kid. I don't know how to lead your people. I want to ask you for wisdom to lead this great people of yours. And God was so pleased with that request. He said, Solomon, you didn't ask for riches. You didn't ask for long life. You didn't ask for victory over your enemies. Since you asked for wisdom, and I love it when people ask for wisdom, he said, I'm going to give you riches. I'm going to give you power. I'm going to give you victory over your enemies, and I'm going to make you the wisest guy who ever lived. So let's hear from the wisest man who ever lived about how to choose the right paths this morning. Proverbs 3, 2 verses. I love them. Some life verses for me. Trust in the Lord, verse 5, with all your heart. And do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Let me read that again. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge God, and he will make straight your paths. Now, I got to tell you before we go any further, a lot of this is real counterintuitive. A lot of this runs completely different than what the culture will tell you, what every Disney movie we ever saw growing up will tell you, what your friends and family and teachers and sometimes preachers will tell you. But the wisest man who ever lived says, listen, I know you're launching out and I want you to make good decisions. So listen to my advice. And here's some things he gives us. He says, first of all, as you're launching out into the summer season of your life, he says, don't follow your heart. What? That sounds sacrilegious in a day when we're told constantly to follow our heart. How will I know how to live? How will I know who to marry? The sitcoms tell us, just follow your heart. How do I know what career? Listen, you go with your instincts. Don't worry, you won't get it wrong. Just follow your heart. How will I know what to do in life? Follow your heart. And Solomon says in verse number 5, do not lean on your own understanding. That word lean there means in Hebrew to prop something up against something else, to rely upon. Solomon says, listen, if you rely on how things look, how things seem, what the culture says, what your gut says, you're going to get it wrong a lot. Don't follow your heart. And by the way, if anybody was qualified to make an assessment based on their gut, it was Solomon. He had all the money you could ask for. He had all the sex appeal and beauty you could ask for. He had all the wisdom you could ask for. If anybody could follow their heart and probably wind up in a good spot, it was him. And he tells us, don't do that. Do not lean on your own understanding. Let me try to illustrate this and just hang with me for a second. How many of you who were born in the 1900s ever made a dumb decision? I didn't say an ignorant decision. Ignorant means you didn't have all the facts. You'd never been down that path before. You did the best you could and it didn't go so well. I'm not talking about an ignorant decision. I'm talking about a dumb decision. You knew better, but you did it anyway. Everybody in here, and if you didn't raise your hand, you're lying, and that's a bad decision in church, man. We've all had those moments. Some were funny. Some became the greatest stories we've got. Some were close calls. When we were in high school, we lived in a little bitty town. Me and my best friend, he's a headmaster of a Christian school in Fort Worth that some of our kids attend now. When we were in high school, we were bored and just looking for something to do. Small town. This is a lot of years ago, so kids do not repeat this. We're in a different era. But we thought it would be fantastic to get a balloon launcher. It was built like a giant slingshot. And one guy would hold one side, one guy would hold the other. The middle guy would back up with a water balloon, and you could put that thing in the atmosphere. We thought it would be hilarious to go to the local bar about 11 p.m. and stand a couple of blocks away and drop those balloons on guys when they came out of the bar. And it was entertaining, I will promise you that. It wasn't as entertaining when I got to my house and my dad was like standing at the door and he's like, well, the police have been here. They got your friend's license plate and his mom sent the cops to you. Right? Listen, back then, that's one thing. Today you get shot doing that. Man, we can all think of some dumb decisions we made where we dodged a bullet. And the truth is, some of them were close calls, some were tragic. Some of our dumb decisions, we look back and say, man, that was tragic. I knew what to do. I knew what not to do. But I did it anyway. Here's the thing that I want to tell you. When it comes to life, we human beings have a propensity for choosing paths that do not lead in the direction we want to go. Let me say it again. When it comes to life, we human beings have a propensity for choosing paths that do not lead in the direction we want to go. When it comes to life, we're all a little bit directionally challenged. Pastor Andy Stanley gave a great reason for that. I think he's right. Listen, why do I knowingly choose paths that take me where I've already decided I don't want to go? The answer is when we stand at the crossroads between prudent, wise, and happy, we lie to ourselves. We listen to our hearts, and then we assign our heads the responsibility of building a case to support our heart's decision. Self-deception is easy when emotions run high. Why do we make those stupid decisions? I know I ought to do this, but this looks so good. I know I shouldn't go there. I know I shouldn't date them. I know I shouldn't do that, but right now my heart tells me that would be more satisfying. That would be more fulfilling. And I'm going to build a case for my wrong decision, even though I know it's not a good decision. Jeremiah 17:9, man, this is tough to hear, but it's the Bible. Jeremiah 17:9, the heart, the human heart, is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Wow. Who can understand it, God says. It's like God says, when it comes to your heart, human beings, your internal compass is busted. Like you don't have true north. In a garden called Eden, centuries ago, your true north got blown away. And if you follow your heart so many times, you're going to make choices that lead you to a destination you don't want to arrive at. Friend, listen to me. That's why in counseling so many times we pastors sit down with people. We sit down with young adults and it's like, well, I know he treats me bad. I know he's abusive. I know I've always wanted to marry a man that would take care of me, and he doesn't take care of me, and he doesn't treat me good, but I love him. How many times? Well, listen, I know this career is going to pull me away from my family, and I might have money, but I won't have a healthy relationship with my wife and my children. But I'm going to go ahead and do it because it feels right, and I can provide for my family, and every other thing you tell yourself that you know deep down isn't true. Well, I know if I take this substance, if I put this in my body, I know that other people got addicted to that. I know it wrecked their life, but I think I'm the exception to that. I'm in control better than that. I know how to handle myself better than that. And you build this case and you wind up being a statistic just like everybody else because you start out using the thing that eventually is using you. When we stand at the crossroads between wise and happy, we tend to defer to our heart and we tend to make decisions and take paths that do not lead us in the direction we want to go. So Solomon is saying this, like, I know it's going to be tough, but don't follow your heart. Does that mean God won't give you a dream and you follow it? No, God will give you a dream. Does that mean that every time your instincts will be wrong? No. But what it does mean is this is faulty and God's got a better compass for you. Here's the second thought. Don't follow your heart. Follow God with all your heart. Verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trust in Hebrew means to lie helpless, face down, to depend. In other words, I'm not leaning on how things look, how things seem, what the culture says, what my friends say. I don't trust myself with that. God, I'm going to rely on you. I'm going to depend on you. Well, what does that look like? Here's the thing. For some of you that are like, you're dating right now, and basically that's, however it's done, that's just sort of a job interview for marriage. Right? Some of you are deciding right now where you're going to go to school, what you're going to major in. You're deciding right now how you're going to handle your money and whether you're going to get into credit card debt. You're deciding right now whether you're going to cling to the truth or start kind of hedging on that a little bit, whether you're going to be honest with your resources or whether you're going to cut corners. You're starting to make those decisions in a major way. How do you trust God? We all know how to go with our gut. That's easy. How do you trust God with all your heart? What does that look like? Here's the thing. When I met Jenny, I was immediately like, wow, she is gorgeous and I like her and I'd love to date her. But I never had a moment where like a spotlight shone down from heaven on her and like the angel choirs were like, it's her. That never happened. Right? The Lord was like, you trusted me and it's her. That never happened. Right? How do you trust him? What does that look like? The next verse, verse 6. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll make straight your paths. I think acknowledge in our modern vernacular is kind of like what you're going to hear at graduation, right? You're going to hear the valedictorian, you're going to hear the salutatorian say, I would like to acknowledge my teachers, I'd like to acknowledge the administration, I'd like to acknowledge it's sort of a tip of the hat to them, right? And let me just say, this is not just a tip of the hat to God. God, direct my paths and everything's cool. Here's what this means. Acknowledge means to recognize and respond accordingly. To submit. To submit. It's to say, God, if I really believe you're you, then you know everything. I don't know everything. I can't even see past graduation. But you know exactly where you want to take my life. And God, the truth is, I can't see everything, but you can see everything. And God, the truth is, I don't even know what would be best for my life. I know what I think would be best for my life. But God, if you're really you said in this book that you gave your son, Jesus Christ, to die on the cross for our sins. If you love me so much, you wanted me back from my sins so badly, you'd let your son get tortured on a tree, and you love me that much, I don't want to trust my gut. I want to trust you. God, if you're really God, and I believe you are, there's only one wise choice I've got with my life. There's only one wise choice I've got with who I'm going to date and marry. There's only one wise choice I've got with where I'm going to go to school. There's only one wise choice I've got with what I'm going to do for a career, and that is to stand before you and open up my hand and say, Lord, show me where you want me to go. Oh, God, take over in who you want me to marry. Oh, God, take over in my values. I know I'll get it wrong every time. But just like Solomon, Lord, I could ask for a lot of stuff. I want to ask you for wisdom. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Here's the line I want to leave you with. Divine direction begins with submission. Divine direction. God, I want you to guide my life. Take it. I want you to write the journal for where I go and what I do. Lord, I'm leaning on you, not my experience. I'm leaning on you, not my insight. I'm leaning on you, not my education. When conventional wisdom conflicts with what you have revealed through the scriptures, I will lean hard into your revelation rather than my understanding. When my emotions are in conflict with your word, I want to lean on your word and harness my emotions. Divine direction begins with submission. And I don't know if you noticed, there's a promise here. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. The King James said he will direct your paths. I like this translation better. I think that gets closer to the Hebrew on this idea, because the truth is, God is not going to beam down to you, like I said, exactly who to marry. He's not going to direct your paths by like fortune cookie style, right? Like crack it open and I'll tell you exactly what to do. What he is going to do is when you open your life to him, whatever decision you make, if it takes you right, if it takes you left, if you go through a period of suffering or you go through a period of glory, he is going to make sure he gets you where you're going. He's going to make your path straight. You're not always going to make the right decision, because sometimes God wants you to make the wrong decision so he can get you to the right place, right? You're not going to do this thing perfectly, and God is going to use even your imperfections to get you where you're going when you simply open up your hand and say, Lord, I want you to use my life and take me where you want me to be. Your path determines your destination. And seniors, I want to say to you, and congregation, I want to implore us to choose the right paths, to open up your hand and let God be your compass, and let him take your life to places you could never imagine. You know, I love the fact that every single one of these seniors who's been with us to Guatemala listed Guatemala as one of their top life events. Every single one of you. You went to a third world country and saw unspeakable poverty. And you got down and in the mud and the blood and the mess, and you served, and completely counter to everything you would have imagined, you found such joy in that place and happiness and life and God in that place. Listen, I know the world will tell you, you trust your instincts, you trust your heart, you trust your gut, but look where it's taking our world. What if you're the exception to the rule and you open your hand in this season of your life and say, God, I'm yours?